time when social norms were ever-changing, an important figure arose and helped pave the way for women's rights: fashion designer Coco Chanel. During the early 20th century, it was uncommon for women to spearhead ideas and projects that they believed in. As an orphan child without a background of wealth, young Chanel was an unsuspected figure in the liberation of women. Using her drive and her ambitious personality, Chanel first broke through her own boundaries before leading the revolution for other women. She leveraged the unique nature of design and its ability to drive change within society. In response to the rising feminist movements, Coco Chanel not only liberated women by creating unique clothing designs, but also broke barriers with her revolutionary accessories.
As a result of industrialization, and as America became a more advanced and modern country, the image of a new woman started to grow and inspired changes in what was considered normal for women. Chanel embodied this ideology, which influenced her perception of fashion and would later on affect how she designed her clothing. In the 1920s, feminist movements started to gain traction and fashion started to change. Another French designer named Paul Poiret introduced the slimline dress during this time. He is credited as the first designer to free women from the constricting nature of corsets. It was during this time that women gained the right to vote, which was a monumental step forward in women's rights. Another major turning point was the founding of the United States Women's Bureau in 1920, which illustrated the advances being made in the workforce for female laborers. Despite these major steps towards equality, women's clothing still remained very feminine and not the most practical. However, when war broke out, women needed more reasonable clothing to take care of their homes, families, and fill in men's jobs in the workforce. Coco created her clothing while keeping functionality in mind, and kept away from corsets and hoop skirts from the earlier century. It seemed as though people were buying her clothes not just in spite of war, but because of it. Chanel catered her designs to be practical and useful, exactly what was needed during this time. During the post-war era in the 1940s, men wanted their wives to revert back to more feminine traits when welcoming them home. Other designers such as Dior started designing new feminine pieces to mirror this time, transitioning away from the more masculine look that women had started to take on during the war era.
In the 1940s, war had just ended, and Christian Dior introduced what was called the new look of 1947 that was totally feminine. And it was the result of women wearing very masculine, very unpretty or unattractive clothes during the 1940s. So when the war was over, they wanted to go back looking like women. And she really was a little bit different in her approach to fashion at that time, because not only were women beginning to be executive type people, they moved away from being ultra feminine.
Chanel did not only respond to the rise of feminist movements during the 20th century, but she exemplified these beliefs and made them her own. The combination of her outlook and radical designs paved the way for female liberation movements to reach their peak.
In direct response to the rise of feminism, Chanel created unique clothing designs that liberated women from previously constricting styles, which opened up a new era of women's fashion. The Chanel look was modern and practical, as she made more elaborate outfits look toned down by using monochrome colors and a simple silhouette, where before women were not seen wearing black and were forced into tight clothing that constructed an ideal female figure. Coco's designs were made from comfortable materials. They had useful pockets placed in strategic spots to keep hands warm. Women had small hats that could be easily packed, and buttons had a purpose more than just decoration. All of these new features were brand new to women and became increasingly popular within the United States. One of Chanel's most popular new designs was the two-piece suit.
Where she really made an impact is when she returned in the mid-1950s and introduced the tailored suit, or the Chanel suit, that she has been so well known for. It was a distinctive look that was all hers, and it was really better received in the United States than it was in Paris. They were not as contemporary.
American Vogue recognized the strength of her tradition and her hallmark, an easy casual look in jersey and tweed that was able to capture the American market. Chanel used this new material to design jackets, which were inspired by men's cardigans and liberated women from tight corsets. These untailored suits made from light tweed reflected her desire for ease and comfort, and the use of buttons and buttonholes on the suit heightened practicality. A seemingly simple part of clothing, the material, in reality had its own way to hold authority over women. Chanel's new materials gave women a choice of convenience and eliminated a way for men to control women. This suit, along with other new designs by Chanel, was an appropriation from menswear, as well as from service and military uniforms, which broke from typical haute couture dress styles and practices that were appreciated by women. Instead of reinforcing a feminine look, the masculine clothing turned a new leaf of comfort and subtle, important rebellion for women. In addition to her masculine looks, she created sportswear for women to wear to various activities. Her clothing was only slightly fitted, if not straight cut, and along with her two-piece suit, her sporty, versatile styles became very popular. She based her designs on what suited her: boyish jersey pieces, many of them inspired by men's English sportswear. Chanel was revolutionary in her contemporary designs for the women's fashion industry and left an immense impact on the daily lives of women. One of her most fashionable, popular, and classic creations was the little black dress. During this time, the color black was used for uniforms or worn during periods of mourning and was perceived as improper if worn for other occasions than these. However, after the death of a close friend, Chanel decided to wear black as a symbol of freedom and strength. Since she had established her role in the fashion industry, Coco was able to revolutionize the color. She was the first to wear the color during all times of the day. Before her, no one would have dared to dress in black.
She designed for women specifically, but not for women to be a plaything for a man. She designed for women to meet their lifestyles.
She refused to let ideas and stereotypes control her outlook or her designs, and in turn she created an entirely new era of clothing for women. American women had finally been given the opportunity to work while the men were away at war, and they refused to give that up when the men returned home. While other designers were reinforcing the stereotypical woman after the war by using clothing as a way for women to be controlled and restricted in the activities they were able to take part in, Chanel proved unique through her never-seen-before designs and shocked America with her clothing. Chanel broke the long-standing barrier on women of being what their husbands wanted them to be and instead gave them a sense of identity that was more than being a submissive wife.
In addition to her clothing, Chanel's accessories created a new image for women in society and contrasted what was previously considered acceptable. During the 1930s, clutches and Dorothy bags were fashionable, but required that the wearer constantly hold them in her hand. These bags proved to be impractical for working women and made them difficult for those that needed to use their hands to do daily work. Chanel wanted a hands-free bag so she could carry out daily activities more easily. As a result, she designed her first shoulder bag, which completely changed handbag fashion in 1929. Women no longer had to limit themselves by holding something in their hands, but could wear Chanel's bag on their shoulder, which freed them to do work. Similarly, Chanel's outlook on jewelry also revolutionized the women's fashion industry. For many years, fake jewelry was made for the less rich to copy genuine pieces. Real jewels were viewed as investments. However, Chanel completely disregarded this ideology and ignored the shame of society by wearing imitation jewelry in public and mixing real and fake pearls. Unlike others, Chanel openly signaled that her stones were not real by designing them to be ostentatiously fake.
Her use of costume jewelry, because she believed that jewelry was not an investment piece, but it should enhance the clothes. And they were just as much an accessory as your hats and shoes and gloves were.
Coco believed that these accessories were not meant to make others jealous, but instead to be thought of as an ornament and something to amuse. She worked to turn the snobbery of jewelry on its head, while also unveiling how she was ahead of her time and challenging the idea of what was real. By completely revolutionizing the fashion industry regarding these accessories, Chanel made fashion something every woman could own, enjoy, and claim. Perhaps one of Chanel's most well-known creations is her Chanel No. 5 perfume. Launched in 1921, it gained popularity quickly and still remains one of the best sellers today. During the 1920s, the one continuity from the old-fashioned world to Chanel's time was women's perfume. Washing facilities were still primitive, so most women would douse themselves in flowery or fruity essences to mask any natural odors. Chanel declared that a woman must smell of a woman and not like a rose, and started working with the genius chemist Ernest Beau to create a new smell. After months of experimenting and blending artificial and natural ingredients, she finally settled on the 5th sample, which gave the perfume its name, Chanel No. 5. Chanel's signature scent was so simple and different compared to the existing ones of the 20th century, such as Orient, Suave, and Sortilège. Coco designed her fragrance to reflect the power and boldness of wealth, not like the artificial, flowery scents of others during her time. Because of its great success, Chanel established her role not only as a fashion designer, but as a perfume maker, creating a new paradigm that a perfume bouquet can leave as deep and memorable an impression as a mink coat or diamond necklace. Today, Chanel No. 5 is the most widely sold perfume in the world.
As a fierce woman of her time, Chanel stood up for what she believed in and rose above toxic masculine ideologies. Chanel not only broke barriers in women's fashion, but also broke the barriers of everyday lifestyles in which women were able to live. Her designs gave women new opportunities to explore their independence and their interests in outside hobbies without being contained to boundaries. As a result, women in the workforce do not feel confined by their feminine duties. Women's fashion has been transformed by Coco Chanel, and her legacy will forever live on.